All right, Shabbos say good morning, good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Sure to thank our TALMUD Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pei for the year 5785, the Tilson Mishpach of Eretz Yisrael, for in the schos of wishing a Mazel Tov to Yehoshua Mordechai Tilson on his engagement to Amit Cohen. Mazel Tov, may they be Zochem Yeretz Hashem. You know, you should just know that Yehoshua Mordechai was a brave chayal, a brave soldier. Baruch Hashem gave much to Am Yisrael, to Eretz Yisrael, and now it is so beautiful that he is going to be celebrating the building of his new home, which should occur in Yeretz Hashem B'Sha'at Tov Mitzlachos, and should in Yeretz Hashem be benched with generations of beautiful simcha, mazel, and bracha. With that, let us begin. And of course, as always, we dedicate our learning in the schus of all of our precious hostages. May Chadosh Baruch Hu Yeretz Hashem bring them home b'shalom and b'karov, and halavai all of our soldiers will be successful b'chol ma'asei yedehem. Today's daf. It doesn't matter what today's daf is. Let's not get caught up in details. Don't lose the trees from the forest. We're going to be learning Sanhedrin today in Yeretz Hashem. We're going to be starting on Daf Ayin Aleph 71, and we're going to see in Yeretz Hashem where the journey takes us. So we are picking up in Yeretz Hashem on Ayin Aleph 71a. We're picking up about 12 lines up from the bottom. Bayis HaMenuga. So Gemara says, Kiman Azla Hadesanyo. In whose opinion is reflected in the following statement? Bayis HaMenuga lo hayav lo asad liyos. So there was never such thing as a Bayis HaMenuga. Bayis HaMenuga means ultimately again a home that was afflicted by tzaras. So such a thing never happened, such a thing never will happen. Whose opinion is this? So the Gemara says, why is it written? If it's never going to happen, why is it written? Ultimately, in order to learn it and receive reward. Kiman Azla, who does this opinion reflect? Rabbi ben Shimon. Like Rabbi ben Shimon. Good. That's the halacha of this time. This time, Rabbi ben Shimon. Rabbi ben Shimon says, "The olam in abayis tamei adshira kishtei gris and ashtei avonim kishtei ksalim b'karen zavis." So again, in order to have tzaras on the house, remember again, there's a whole topic with tzaras in the house. Rashi HaKadosh points out that halacha l'maisa tzaras in the home was not as much a punishment as much as it was a bracha, because as Rashi points out, before the Jews came into Eretz Yisrael, the indigenous nations there hid treasures in the walls of their home, and the truth is the only way you would know that those treasures were present was with tzaras, because that would require the removal of stones, and then one would see the treasure literally again that was buried behind. So again, Rabbi ben Shimon says, but in order to have tzaras of the home, you need to satisfy so many different criteria. It has to be like 2 grisin. A gris is a measurement. Ashtei avanim on 2 different stones. B'shtei ksalim on 2 different walls. B'keren zavis. So essentially it would mean they have to be in a corner. Arko kishnei grisin, v'rachbo kish gris. It have to have a length of 2 grisin, a width of 1 gris. So my time at Rabbi Lazar. What's Rabbi Lazar Shimon's logic? Why does he say this? Ksiv kir, uksiv kiros. Because the pasuk says, talking about tzaras on the home, it says it appears on a wall, and then it says it appears on walls, plural. So the Gemara says, Ezuhu kir shuki kiros. What ultimately again is a home, what is a wall that is like walls, plural? Havi omer zeh keren zavis. This refers ultimately again to a corner. So Tanya Amar Rabbi Tzadok. So we'll say, so Rabbi Tzadok says, Makom haya betchum azah. V'hayu korim also churvisa segirta. So the Gemara said, but there was a place in Azah, and they called this place in Azah churvisa segirta. So again, interestingly enough, Rashi points out over here, churva is mitzora. Right? Churva is called a mitzora. So essentially what Rabbi Lazar Tzaddik is saying is, but one second, there was mamish a home that was known to have tzaras. Rabbi Shimon, ish kfar ako pamachas halachti begalil, v'ra'isi makom shemetzainin oso v'amru avonim minugaos pinu l'sham. Same idea, Rabbi Shimon, ish kfar ako says, one time I went to the Galil, and in fact I found a place where they were storing stones that they said were removed from a home afflicted with tzaras. So I will say, so once again, you see this tension. On one hand, first opinion saying there was never a home with tzaras, never happened, too much specificities. The other opinion saying that Allah Chalamaysa, no, we actually saw a home with tzaras. Beautiful. Much to say on this, but we'll cover a little bit of ground before we get into some life lessons. Says the Mishnah, Haya echmem gidem, o chiger, o ilem, o suma, o cheresh. So let's remember again, we saw in the last sugya that in order for a child to become ben Sora or Mora, Lashon of the Gemara was the parents have to be shava. Parents have to be quote unquote equal, right, or similar. Now, the way the Gemara was talking about over there was that the parents have to be shava, bekol, bemara, ubekoma. They have to be shava, they have to be similar in literally, again, their voice, their height, and even in their appearance. Now the Mishnah goes on to more technicalities. If one of the parents was a gidem, Rashi points out over here, is gidem is they're missing a hand, an amputee, o chiger, or they're crippled in their leg and therefore can't walk, o ilaim, or mute, o sumo, or blind, o cherish, or cherish generally means deaf-mute, eno nasa ben soramora. The child can't become ben soramora. This is a technicality. Now why? Is that shnei because listen to this. V'tafsu bo avivimo. The pasuk says his parents will grab him. For lo gidmin. Obviously, in order to grab him, they need hands. So if they're missing a hand, then halacha l'maisa, kid can't become a ben soramora. Votzio also, they will take him out. So therefore, again, if they lack a leg, lack an ability to go ahead and remove him, they can't take him. The Gemara says, va'amru, they will say, the parents will say, v'lo ilmin, not if they're mute. Benenu zeh, they have to be able to identify this son. V'lo sumin, and not parents who are blind. Einenu shomea bekolenu. They have to say the son doesn't listen to our voices. V'lo charshin, and not a mute. Not a mute. Right, the Gemara says, Masrin bo b'fnei shlosha, o malkin also. They warn the ben soramora, so again there's hasra. They warn him first in the presence of three, and then ultimately administer malchus afterwards. Chazer v'kilgal. So again, I will say it's interesting, because here we're introduced to something new. Apparently, there is like a hasra. They warn the kid about his behavior in front of three, right? So again, apparently the way it works is like this. The child or the young man steals the money, purchases the meat and the wine, conforms to all of the criteria that we established in the last couple of dapim. His parents warn him in front of a basin of three. And then again, they flog him. They give him malchus. If he repeats the behavior again, that's when he becomes a ben soramora. Chazer v'kilkel be'asr mishlosha. If he goes ahead and repeats this errant behavior, then he is judged by a basin of 23, which makes sense because now this is a capital case. Ve'on iskal achu sham shlosha rishonim. But again, he's only stoned, he's only executed if part of the basin of 23 consists of part of the I should say differently. The original three who essentially judged him for malchus have to be part of the second basin of 23. Shne'emar benenu zeh shalaka b'fneichem, because they have to say, the parents say benenu zeh, this son. This son means the son that was warned and flogged in front of you, the first three, is now going to be executed for becoming a ben soramora. Incredible. Shamas mina. The Gemara says, what do you see from here? Ba'inon kra. Kidichsiv. Now we'll say, what you see from here is something very interesting. That halacha l'maisa, when a pasuk is written a certain way, that's the process that has to be followed. In other words, we'll say, what does this mean? So you would have thought like this. If you look at this pasuk of ben soramora, right? So the pasuk says, "V'tafsu bo aviviimo." His parents will take hold of him. V'otziu osa al ziknei iro v'al shar mekamo, and they will take him out right to the basement. V'amru, and they say. Now, if you notice, what's happening over here? If you notice, there's a very literal interpretation of the pasuk in here, right? That literally they have to be able to grab him. They have to be able to walk. I don't know, when you look at this pasuk, one could have also easily said, the pasuk is more figurative. I don't know that you have to understand the pasuk in such a literal sense, but clearly, the Mishnah is understanding it in a literal sense. The Gemara says, what do you see from here? Shamas mina, ba'inon kra kidichsiv. You have to follow a pasuk as the way that it's written. The Gemara says, "Shiny, no, this is different." Shiny hacha, why? Amud base. We're making progress. Shiny hacha, 71b. The kule kra yiseruhu. So as I say, no, this is different because here the pasuk itself is written in such an elongated form. Look here, Rashi. Kule kra yisera. The matzi lemichta votseisem osal shara'ir ho'uskaltem. In other words, you can leave out this whole thing. His parents will grab onto him. Just say, they take him to the Beis Din. Done. The fact that the pasuk is written in such longhand indicates to us that there is a hakpada. The Torah is telling us that, again, the parents have to be able to engage in all of these processes, and inability to do so prevents the kid from becoming ben soramora. Okay, and we warn him in front of three. So the Gemara says, Lamali, why do you need three? Betray sagya. Why do you need hasra in front of three? You just need hasra in front of two witnesses. A Rabbi Hachi Kamar, Masrin ba bifnei shnayim, umalkin also bifnei shlosha. No, what it means is like this. You're right, we warn him in front of two witnesses, and we give him malchus in front of three, because three represents a Beis Din. So Mara says, whoa, malchus ben soramora hecha ksiva. Where do we ever see malchus by ben soramora, right? The only thing we ever see by ben soramora is what? Is execution. Misa. Where are you getting malchus from a ben Sorah Mora? Kid Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Avo. Labmanu v'yisru mi v'yisru. So we'll say we make a gzera shava. V'yisru. So it says v'yisru also v'yisru ben Sorah Mora, and then it says v'yisru by malchus. And then again, v'yisru mi ben, uben mi ben, v'ayam ben akol sarasha. So essentially there's a gzera shava between malchus and between ben Sorah Mora to teach us that first time offender, right? First time offender ben Sorah Mora gets malchus. Okay, incredible. The Gemara says, Chazar v'kilkel nidam mechav gimel. So again, if the ben Sorah Mora once again repeats his negative behavior again, he'll be judged this time in front of a basin of 23 because now it is effectively a capital case. So the Gemara says, Haim mi boile zeh. So the Gemara darshans b'neinu zeh. That's how the Gemara darshan did. That's how darshan before the Mishnah. But 1 second. Haim mi boile zeh v'lo sumin. Now remember again, but we already used that zeh. That zeh was already darshan to teach us what? That Allah Chalamaysa, the parents have to have sight in order for the kid to become ben Sorah Mora. So how are you now using that same zeh for a different drasha? Imki lichtov benenu hu, my benenu zeh. The pasuk could have just written benenu hu, but instead it said benenu zeh. Shmami not tarti. So everyone will say zeh teaches me two things. What are the two things it teaches me? Number one, it teaches me parents have to have sight in order for the son to become ben Sorah Mora. That's number one. And number two, that the original three who served as the Beis Din for Malchus have to be part of the Beis Din of 23 for execution. Incredible. Mishnah, Baruch Achlo Nigmar Dino, V'yachar Kach Hekev Zakana Tachton, Patra. Okay, so remember again, in the beginning of the Ben Sorah Umora Sugya, that Ben Sorah Umora is interesting. There's like a window. What's the window? It has to be like a Katan Samoch Leish, which essentially is, you can only become Ben Sorah Umora immediately upon reaching adulthood. And the metric for that, the Gemara says, essentially was what the Gemara called like a beard of pubic hair, a ring of pubic hair. So the Mishnah raised a very interesting point over here. Let's say a kid is accused of being a ben Sorah Mora, right? And when he is brought to Beis Din, he's of the age where it's appropriate. In other words, where you could be Dan, you could be a judge of the ben Sorah Mora. And then what happens? He ran away from Beis Din. He ran away. He escaped from Beis Din. Before the verdict was passed. And then what happens? They find him again, and they want to bring him back to Beis Din. But by the time they bring him back to Beis Din, he has further physically matured. What's the halacha? Pater. In other words, he's aged out of ben Sorah Umora, and therefore again, so the interesting part, remember again, this is because he escaped before his verdict. So if he escaped before his verdict, by the time we get him back to Beis Din, he's already too physically matured. Right, what we call the Zakana Tachton has already formed. He's out. He's free on a technicality. On the other hand, if let's say the kid came to Beis Din, was judged, verdict was passed, but he escaped before execution, and then we find him afterwards, even though now he possesses more signs of physical maturation, we could still execute him. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Ben Noach shebirech es Hashem. Interesting case over here. So let's say I have a Ben Noach, a non-Jew, who cursed HaKadosh Baruch Hu chas v'shalom. And then what happens? V'achar kach nisgayer. Then he converted. What's the halacha? Pater. And he converted Pater. Why? What's the logic over here? So within his logic, Hoil v'nishtana dino, nishtana misaso. Because we'll say that halacha l'maisa, his whole legal framework changed. Remember again when he was at Rashi points out something very interesting. So literally translated, since his legal ramifications or his legal framework changed, therefore his verdict changed as well. Take a look at Rashi. As a Ben Noach, right? A Ben Noach is judged with one witness, one judge, right? One judge and no hasra. A Jew is judged with a Beis Din of 23, hasra and everything else. So therefore, again, since now he converted, since his legal framework changed, therefore what? His din, his halacha changed as well. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Baruch Achlon Nigmar Dina. So we'll say our Mishnah would seem to support the same idea. If the Ben Sorah Mora, if he escaped before the verdict was delivered, and before again, and then when they found him, he already exhibited signs of further physical maturation. He's Pater, my type, but what's the reason? Lav mishum darminan hoil v'ishtani, because he changed. Since he physically changed, therefore what? his din changed as well. So the Gemara says, no. Lo shiny hacha di avid hashtala bar kitalahu. No, it's different. Why? Because now he's in a state where if he had committed that very same crime, right, as a child, or as a young man with enhanced signs of physical maturation, if he were to steal that same money and buy meat and buy wine, he would not be chayiv at this stage. That's why if he escapes before the verdict, we find him later on, he's going to be pater. So Tashma, chayiv. So ultimately, again, if they delivered the verdict, but he ran away from Beis Din before he was executed, and then they find him, but by the time that they find him, he has already exhibited signs of further physical maturation. What's talacha? Chayiv. He's chayiv. Now, why is that? Nigmar dino ka'amrit, because again, Allah says verdict was passed. Nigmar dino garva katilahu. When he's already, if his verdict was passed, then Allah of course he's going to be chayiv. So the Gemara says as follows. We'll say, by the way, what a tremendous Musar Haskell it is. Tremendous Musar Haskell. So if a Ben Noach curses HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then he converts, what's talacha? He's not subject to a death penalty. Why? Because again, the lashon of the Gemara, always lashon of the Gemara, hoil v'nishtana dino, nishtana misaso. His din changed, and therefore again his death penalty changed. What do you see from here? You see from here that halacha l'maisa, even if there is a certain din hanging over a person, there's a certain verdict hanging over a person, if you change who and what you are, ultimately, again, that din changes as well. We'll say this is a very important Gemara hashkafically, because in general, there's a fundamental question when it comes to tshuva. When it comes to tshuva, let's say again, I'm a person, I commit an avera. As a person who committed an avera, I warrant a particular punishment. So now there's this concept of tshuva, and tshuva says that I could go ahead and change my din. So how does that work? How does that work? Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't change his mind. The Ribbon Shalom doesn't change. The Ribbon Shalom is perfect. So what does it mean? If I'm chayiv for the death penalty, I'm chayiv for the, or whatever the particular onesh may be. How does it work? So what I say, interestingly enough, the way it works hashkafically is the din doesn't change. The din is always the same. What changes? Me. I'll give you a simple mashal. A person goes ahead and makes $100,000 a year. So as $100,000 a year, you're in a particular tax bracket. Let's say the next year you make $200,000. So again, we'll say you're in a different tax bracket. Has the tax law changed? Has the tax law changed? No. The tax law is exactly the same. What's changed? Me. That's the whole dynamic of tshuva. The din is the din. If I remain the same person, then this is the din. This is where it is. But the beautiful opportunity we have in life is that I don't have to remain the same person. I could change myself. And when I change myself, suddenly again, the din, the judgment that was over here, it's still there. It's still there. And if I choose to become that same person again, it's going to be waiting for me over there. But if I choose to become someone different, there's just a whole new set of laws and a whole new set of realities and a whole new set of ramifications that are there for you, say. That's the greatness of change, the greatness of tshuva. I can take myself from one framework to another framework. The framework is still there. The framework didn't change. I changed. So the Ben Noach who curses HaKadosh Baruch Hu chas v'shalom, if he becomes a Yid, he becomes a Yid. So at the end of the day, again, he's now Hov Ishtani. He's a different person, and therefore a separate set of dinim. When we become Bali Tshuva, when we change, when we uplift ourselves, we just take ourselves from one framework to another framework. Most incredible thing in the world. Let's go weiter. Listen to this. A Ben Noach, a non-Jew, who goes ahead and hits his fellow non-Jew, or commits adultery with the wife of his fellow non-Jew. And then what happens? So obviously getting himself into a whole boatload of trouble over here. And then he decides to convert. Now, what Beis Din is taking this guy, I'm not exactly sure, right? But Lamaisa, again, he goes ahead and he converts. What's the halacha? Pater. He's pater, right? He's pater from all of these things. Why? Now, we'll say, what's the logic over here? The logic over here is that halacha lemaisa. Remember, when he converts as a Jew who goes ahead and hits the Ben Noach, or a Jew who commits adultery with the wife of a Ben Noach, is not subject to a death penalty. So therefore, halacha lemaisa, as a Ben Noach, he was subject to a death penalty. Now, halacha lemaisa, he is not subject to these halachos of death penalties. Also, can be Yisrael and his chayiv. But if a Ben Noach hit a Jew, or a Ben Noach committed adultery with the wife of a Jew, and then he converts, he's still going to be liable. Still going to be liable. Why? Because again, these are actions. If had he committed them as a Jew, he would also be liable. Says the Ben Noach, he's liable as a Jew, he's liable. V'amai, why? Name a hol v'ishtani ishtani. Why don't we go ahead and say, but he changed, he converted. Dino umisasa ba'inan, Dino umisasa ba'inan. Now, in order to apply this metric of change, it has to be that both the din and the death penalty changes. V'hai, Dino ishtani, misasa lo ishtani. Here, the particulars perhaps of his judgment may change, but the death penalty still remains the same. Quite fascinating. So, Bishlam Osech, Meikara Saif, Ashta Saif. So I understand the death penalty itself, right? When he kills someone, says Ben Noach, it was Saif. And now he'd also be chayiv sayif. Because remember, Ben Noach, we saw this parable a little while ago, Ben Noach is always executed with sayif. So as a Gentile, it was sayif, and as a Jew, it's sayif. Ala eshes ish, but with adultery, as a Ben Noach, it's sayif, v'hashta chenek. But now it's going to be strangulation. So this din is different. To which we'll say, second line down in the wide lines, benara mu'urasa. So we'll say, we're talking about over here where he committed adultery with an ara mu'urasa. The idi v'idi b'skilahu. B'idi v'idi b'skila. Both a Ben Noach as well as a Jew have the punishment of skila for an ara mu'urasa. I v'ha asa came be Yisrael, tumia de'eshes chavero. Katani. But it says if he committed this same act with the Yisrael, comparable to Eshes Chavero, Ella, Kala Bechamura Meshech Sheicha. So we'll say, but rather we say again, interestingly enough, a more lenient penalty is automatically dragged along or included with a more severe one. That's why Rabbanan say that Saif is more Chamer than Chenek. Rabbi Shimon Chenek Chamer Ma'ikal. So we had all this before. But according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that Chenek, strangulation, is more Chamer than Saif, what are you going to say? Rabbi Shimon Silber Kitana de Bemenasha. Da'amar Chomi Samura Bilibnei Noach Eino El Chenek. But so we had this machlokes. So he holds like Bemenasha, Tana Bemenasha, who holds that no Bnei Noach are always put to death with Chenek. So Bishlama Eshes Ish Meikara Chenek V'Hashta Chenek. So I understand the case where the Ben Noach committed adultery with the wife of a Yisrael, and then he converted, because whether he was a Ben Noach or he's a Jew, he's punishable by Chenek. So when it's Elorotzeach Meikara Chenek V'Hashta Saif. But 1 second. But according to this, as a Ben Noach, for murder, he would be Chayiv Chenek, and now as a Jew, he would be Chayiv Saif. To which the Gemara says, it's not a problem. Kala bechamura meshech shaycha. Again, we assume that saif is a more lenient form of death penalty than chenek, and therefore, again, the more lenient one is included with the more chamer one. Sarcha v'achakach bagra. Right? The Gemara says, tidon bechenek. So the Gemara says, Tidon bechenek, b'skila my time alone. So she would be judged with chenek and not with skila. Why not with skila? La mishum dehol ishtani. It must be because halacha l'maisa to nara murasa. Nara murasa, who ultimately committed adultery, then she became bolgeres. So what's the halacha? She's judged with chenek. Right? The Gemara says, why not skila? La mishum dehol ishtani, because she changed from a nara to a bolgeres. V'kol shekein hacha d'ishtani legamre. And all the more so in this case where the change was complete. Hamir Rabbi Yochanan letana tani tidon b'skila. So ultimately, again, so Rabbi Yochanan says to the Tana, you're right. Rather, instead, write that halacha l'maisa subject to skila. Incredible. Both say, what's the takeaway? The takeaway. Sorry, I went a little bit quickly over there. What's the takeaway? The takeaway is like this: that halacha l'maisa, again, if you have a case of Ansora Mora where the kid is brought to Beis Din and then he escapes, and we find him later on, what do you do with him? So the answer is, it depends. It depends. If his verdict was passed, right, and he escaped before execution, when you find him, you execute him. If he escapes before the verdict was passed, then what do you do? It depends. If you find him before he's developed further signs of physical maturation, then you could pass the verdict and you could kill him. But if he escaped before the verdict was passed and now he developed further signs of physical maturation, halacha l'maisa, since he has changed, right? Things have changed. You can no longer judge him as a ben sora umora, and just other cases like that of the ben noach who curses HaKadosh Baruch Hu and then converts, the ben noach who goes ahead and hits his friend, right, or commits adultery, then converts. Similar types of cases. Beautiful. Let's go. Ben sora umora. It's interesting. This Mishnah feels like it should have been at the beginning of this entire parak, but okay, we're going to do it here. Ben sora umora. Nidon Hashem sofo. Ben sora umora is executed not as much because of what he has done, but because of what we are concerned he is going to become. The Gemara says, Yamos Zaka val Yamos Chayiv. Ultimately, again, let him die innocent and don't let him die Chayiv. Don't let him die culpable. Why? Shemisasan Sharisham Hana Elohen V'Hana the Olam. Because the death of the wicked is good for them. Because their death atones for them, and it's also good for the world. L'tzadikim ra lohem v'ra li'olam. The death of tzadikim is bad for tzadikim, and it's bad for the world. I will say, why is death bad for tzadikim? It's such a profound Gemara, Mishnah. Why is death bad for tzadikim? Why? Because l'maisa, with death, they no longer have the ability to go ahead and perform ma'asim tovim. I will say, life is the greatest gift, because as long as you're alive, you have the ability to just change yourself, change the world. So death for tzaddikim is a bad thing, because with their death, they lose their ability to impact change. And it's bad for the world. The Gemara says, Rali Olam, Yayin b'shein l'rishayim hana'ala, and v'ana'ali Olam. So we'll say, listen to this, wine and sleep, for the Rishayim, it's pleasurable for them, and it's good for the world. Why? Because if Rishayim are drinking and they're sleeping, that usually means that what? They're not bothering anyone else. Good. So be occupied with your wine, be occupied with your sleep, and go for it. Let tzadikim ra lohem v'ra li'olam. We'll say this is incredible, but for tzadikim, wine and sleep is terrible for them and terrible for the world. Well, listen to how profound this is. Why? Because when the tzaddik is drinking too much, or the tzaddik is sleeping, he's not accomplishing. And if the tzaddik is sleeping and not accomplishing, drinking and not accomplishing, that's bad for him, and it's bad for Rabbi. Here it is, right? This is a raya to what we do. Sleep is bad. Sleep is bad, apparently. It feels so good. It does, right? But apparently, again, it's not good if we want to beat tzaddikim. Incredible. Pizur l'rishayim, hana Elohem v'hana li'olam. So we'll say, pizur means, again, literally, displacement. The Gemara says scattering is good for Rishayim and good for the world. In other words, if Rishayim are not together, if they're not concentrated, it's good for them because then they can't collaborate with one another, and it's also good for the world. So let tzadikim ra lohem v'ra li'olam. For tzadikim, obviously, again, it's not good. It's not good. Because again, when tzaddikim are together, they're able to go ahead and collaborate, and they're able to be a force amplifier. So for Rishayim, Pizur is good. Ultimately, for tzaddikim, it's not good. It's Pizur. So Pizur means literally, again, scattered. Pizur also means, sometimes we're say, a person could be in one geographic place, but they're in a million different emotional headspaces. And when a person is like that, we all experience times like that. It's very disjointing. It's very disjointing, and it's very hard to accomplish something when you're not settled. Essentially, really what Pizur represents, let's do the opposite. It's the opposite. The Gemara says, Kinos l'rishayim ra lohem v'ra li'olam. So kinos means gathering. When Rishayim are together, that's bad for them and bad for the world, obviously. The Gemara says, because then they can collaborate. V'let tzadikim, hana Elohem v'hana li'olam. For tzadikim, it's good for them and it's good for the world. So I will say, this is really incredible. So for tzadikim, Pizur scattering is bad, kinos is good. So of course, you can understand that on a pshat level. When tzaddikim are together, that's great. They can collaborate. They can accomplish. It's a force multiplier. And when they're dispersed, again, they can only accomplish as much as any one individual can. But it's not just true in other words, this is also true on a personal level. Sometimes in life, I'm in a state of Pizur. Pizur is I'm all over the place. When I'm all over the place, it's hard to accomplish when you're everywhere. When you're everywhere. Why? Because I will say, Pizur means there's a lack of mindfulness. There's a lack of presence. Right? Kinos means there's mindfulness. Kinos means a gathering. I'm in one place. I'm mindful. I'm attentive. I'm there. It's interesting. Sometimes we like to think that when we focus on multiple things, we're accomplishing more. But we know this. When you multitask, maybe you are accomplishing more, but the quality of the work is significantly diminished. That's Pizur. Pizur is multitasking. So just know, again, it's not the best thing. Kinos is where there's mindfulness, there's attentiveness, I'm present. When that happens, it's good for me and it's good for the world. Incredible. Let's finish up. The Gemara says, Shaket, l'rishayim ra lohem v'ra li'olam. Tranquility is bad for Rishayim, because when it's tranquil, Rishayim could do a lot more damage, and it's bad for the world, right when Rishayim have Shaket. Let tzadikim hana Elohem v'hana li'olam. For tzadikim, ultimately, again, tranquility is good for them, because with tranquility, they can focus on accomplishing more, and obviously, if the tzaddik could accomplish more, then it's good for the tzaddik, and it's good for the world. Rabbi says so much to discuss about this Mishnah, but for a different time. Top of Ayin Beis 72a says the Mishnah. Tanya, Rabbi Yosef Lili Omer, because the Ben Sora Mora has stolen money and has purchased some meat and purchased some wine, he should be executed. You know, says $1 million question. Ella higia Torah l'sof daito shel Ben Sora Mora. Rather, the Torah knows what is going to happen with the Ben Sora Umora. The Gemara says, why? Shesof migmar nichse aviv. At a certain point, he's going to finish all of his father's money. And he's going to want to sustain his habits that he's formed. And he's not going to be able to. And he's going to go out and he's going to become a robber. Amra Torah, Yomos Zakai va'al Yomos Chayiv. The Torah says, let him die innocent. In other words, remember, as Ben Sor Mora, has he done something bad? Yeah. Does it deserve death? No. But the Torah sees where this type of behavior is going to lead to, and ultimately says, you know what? Kill him now. Kill him now before he becomes a real liability for himself and for greater society. Because the death of Rishaim is good for Rishaim. Again, kill this kid before he goes out and becomes a real menace to society, and it's good for the world. I will say, by the way, this is so fascinating if you think about it. First of all, so this harkens back. I like that phrase, harkens back. It feels like Anyway, so I'll say, so I feel like you say with an accent. Harkens back, I don't know, good. Anyway, so this is why we don't finish it up. So Gemara says as follows. So remember, this goes back to yesterday's daf where we saw the machlokes. Did Ben Sora Mora happen? Did it not happen? So remember all of this together. So that's the fundamental machlokes. I will say, but it struck me, why do we say this, right? What's the whole concern about Ben Sora Mora? He's going to steal money. He's going to purchase meat and purchase wine. And we're afraid that when he finishes his father's money, he's going to go out and steal. I don't understand. Maybe he'll just get a job. Maybe he'll manage a hedge fund. I don't know. Why do we automatically assume that he's going to continue stealing in order to support his habits? So we'll say, what do you see from here? When you get used to not working, when you get used to handouts, when you get used to going ahead and supporting your lifestyle on the back of others, that is a very difficult habit to break. That's what's happening over here. So because this kid, he's never worked. In other words, it's one thing if he's an industrious young man. He likes nice things, right? You see kids like this who like nice things. So what happens? What do? They hustle. All right, so he hustles and he wants nice meat and nice wine and nice clothes. Okay, you know what? That's fine. You're working hard for it. We're not worried about a kid like that. What we're worried about is someone who steals in order to support a habit. You develop that type of mindset from when you're young, that like magiali, the world owes me something, and you go out and you support yourself from other people's hard work. That's a terrible midah. And that's a midah that's not going to be broken. That's the kind of person that when they run out of their father's funds, he's not getting a job. He's not going to, you know what he's doing? He's taking from other people. It's such a detrimental mindset. It's not just about the meat and the wine. It's about a feeling of entitlement, that you feel so entitled that you could take other people's stuff to support yourself. I will say, you know the worst midah a yid could have? The worst midah? Entitlement. Magiali. You know, Rabbi Sachs, Zechatzaddik Levracha, pointed out that in Yiddishkeit, there are no rights. There's no Bill of Rights in Judaism. Right? Torah doesn't entitle you to anything. Rabbi Sachs, Zechatzaddik Levracha, writes that in Yiddishkeit there are only responsibilities. There's 613 responsibilities. Responsibilities, not rights. Why? Because a Yid should never walk around feeling entitled. No one owes you anything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't owe you anything. And I will say, by the way, it sounds strange because like, 1 second, that's not true. People do owe me something, right? People owe me akar, sato, people owe me this. I will say, the problem is if you walk around feeling you're entitled, there's one thing you could be absolutely sure of, which is you will be profoundly disappointed. So you can feel entitled. Everybody owes me everything. Okay, and when it doesn't come, you're going to get upset, you're going to get offended, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get all these different things. Or walk around, you know what? No one owes you anything. Don't walk around with a magiali entitlement. And so I will say again, in marriage, don't walk around feeling that your spouse owes you something. Your kids don't owe you something. Your parents don't owe you something. Your friends don't owe you something. It's beautiful if they do something for you, and then when they do something, you will feel such a profound wave of hakara satov. Because like, wow, that's beautiful. But again, you can dispense with so much life disappointment if they get rid of the feeling of entitlement. And that's what's happening over here. You know what the real danger of the Ben Sora Umore? It's not the meat and it's not the wine. It's the walking around from a young age with a feeling of entitlement. Jews don't have rights. Jews have responsibilities. Dispense with the feeling of entitlement in all of your life relationships and become much happier in all areas of life. Let's go back there. So Gemara says, "V'hanal tzadikim." Right? Gemara says, "Hanal lahem v'hanal la'olam." But tzadikim, ra lahem v'ra li'olam. For tzadikim, ultimately, again, death is bad for them and bad for the world. The Gemara says, Yayin, this is just repeating what we saw in the Mishnah a little bit. Yayin, Shina v'yayin l'rishayim, hanal li'olam. Sleep and wine are good for Risham because then they're not causing problems. Shina v'yayin l'risham hanalam v'hanal li'olam l'tzadikim ra lahem v'ra li'olam. But wine and sleep is not good for the tzadikim. Why? Because again, for the tzadikim, if they're drinking or they're sleeping, they're not performing their ma'asim tovim. Sheket l'risham ra lahem v'ra li'olam. Tranquility is bad for Risham, bad for the world because it gives them time to engage in all their negative machinations. L'tzadikim hanalam v'hanal li'olam. But for tzadikim, it's good. For tzadikim, it's good. Pizur l'risham hanalam v'hanal li'olam. So again, scattering, displacement is good for Risham, good for the world. L'tzadikim ra lahem v'ra li'olam. Mishnah. Habab Machteres. What I say, switching gears now. Habab Machteres is a thief. Habab Machteres means a thief who comes in secret. Habab say now, literally, Machteres, the way that Rashi understands it, the way Gemara understands it over here, is a thief who comes in through tunneling. He's literally, again, digging a tunnel, right, from somewhere into the house of the person he wants to rob. So Habab Machteres, Nidon Hashem Sofo. So the halacha is, if somebody, now the assumption is this is happening at night, this is happening in secret, the Torah says that if somebody breaks into your home, tunneling into your home, you're allowed to kill them. You're allowed to kill them. Now we'll see why that is. The Gemara says, so the thief is judged based on what we believe he is going to be willing to do. So let's say Reuven broke into my home. And when breaking into my home, he broke a barrel also. So what's halacha? Im yesh lo damim chayiv. If I'm not allowed to kill Reuven, and we'll discuss the parameters of this, then Reuven is going to be chayiv for breaking the barrel. Im ein lo damim pater. But if at the end of the day I'm allowed to kill Reuven, then he's pater for breaking the barrel. Now why is that? That's the kimle b'derabamine. Because since I'm allowed to kill him, he's chayiv a death penalty. Because chayiv a death penalty, therefore he is pater for financial damages. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav, my time in the Machteres. We'll say, now why is it that you're allowed to kill someone who breaks into your home? Right? After all, again, the person is a thief. They're just coming to steal stuff. So why are you allowed to kill the person? So the Gemara says, listen to this. Chazaka ein adam mamid atzma mamono. So we'll say, listen to this. The chazaka is, people don't just let other people steal their stuff. Right? In other words, it's my stuff. And I'm going to defend my home. I'm going to defend my property. Now a thief knows that. A thief knows that when he breaks into someone's home and wants to go in and steal someone's stuff, that the homeowner is going to defend his property. So therefore the thief says, Amar iya zilma kailafai v'lo shavik le v'i kailafai katlina le. So therefore every thief knows that the homeowner is going to remain ready to defend his home. And therefore what does that mean? Every thief therefore is ready to do what? To do what? Kill the homeowner. So therefore a thief, and again I will say, this is a thief, this is not like a pickpocket, right? This is a person breaking into a home in a secretive way. So everyone knows that a person is going to defend their home, therefore the thief remains ready to kill the homeowner if it requires. And therefore the thief becomes a rodef. The thief, halacha l'maisa, again, is essentially looked at as a murderer. Torah amra in balahargicha hashkim lahargo. And therefore, again, the Torah says, if somebody comes to try to kill you, halacha l'maisa, you're allowed to kill them first. That's habab machteres. Incredible. So amarav, hacha habab machteres v'notal kelim v'yatza patas. What's interesting? Rav says, listen, this is fascinating. So let's say Reuven breaks into my home. Right? Reuven breaks into my home, and halacha l'maisa, again, he gets out. Right, he gets out and he takes some stuff with him. So Rav says something very interesting. Rav says Reuven doesn't have to return the items. Doesn't have to return it. Right? My taima b'damim kaninu. What's the logic? Since when he broke into my house, he was considered a rodef. He's chayiv misa. So because he's chayiv misa, therefore he's pater for any type of monetary law, and therefore he doesn't have to return the objects. If he gets out alive, right? If he gets out alive and he takes my stuff, he doesn't have to return it. I will say, by the way, very similar also like we have this in Maryland law, like the castle doctrine, right? This idea that people defend their home. And there's an understanding that if someone breaks into my home, no one's going to say, oh, you know what? It's just stuff. No, yeah, it is stuff. You know it is stuff. But you know what? It's my stuff. It's my stuff. And I worked for it, and you didn't. So if I'm armed, I'm going to defend my home. And the law recognizes that as well, right? And you're not chayiv to ask, well, what exactly are you here for, right? In other words, expensive stuff, inexpensive stuff, maybe a little something, take a little toam out. There's no chiv. The understanding over here is I'm going to defend my home. You know I'm going to defend my home, and therefore if you're coming in, you're ready to kill me, and therefore again, I'm ready to kill you. That's the halacha. Amar Rava. So Rava says like this. So Rava said, but this is a pretty wild statement of Rav. So Rav says, Ruvain breaks into my home, and he gets out alive, and he's holding my stuff. Rav says he doesn't have to give it back. Why? Because since he's subject to a death penalty, therefore he's part for any type of monetary compensation, he can keep my stuff. Rav says, what? So Rav's statement makes sense when, let's say, again, the object is no longer, in existence. All right, so he stole something and then it broke. He's not chayiv to make financial restitution. The Gemara says, "Aval not alo." But if he has the object, he has to give back. The Gemara says, not true. Not true. Rav said, even if the object is extant, still Reuven doesn't have to give it back. Incredible. The hayesh lo damim. Because again, essentially, since Ruvain the thief was liable to a death penalty, he essentially acquired the object through his death penalty. Right? He's subject to death. He's not subject to any type of financial compensation, and therefore the object is now deemed to be in his rishus. Gemara says, "V'lohi." This is not true. The Gemara says that's not true. When we say that the object is in the rishus of the thief, that's for onsin. If something happens to it, the thief is responsible. But for an obligation of return, of course, if the item is still extant, the thief has to give it back to the owner. He's no different than a shoel. So what the Gemara is suggesting over here is this interesting statement of Rav. So Rav says if the thief gets out alive with an object, he doesn't have to give it back. Rava says that's only if the object is not extant. But if the object is extant, of course the thief has to give it back. Let's analyze Tanan. Thief comes in, writes repetitiously, and he breaks a barrel. Yesh lo damim chayiv. So what's the lashon of yesh lo damim means? That the homeowner is not allowed to kill him in these circumstances. We'll see what those circumstances are. So if it's a case where I'm not allowed to kill the thief, so the thief is liable for the damage to the barrel. Ein lo damim potter. But again, if halacha ma'aseh I'm not allowed to kill him, then he's not chayiv for financial compensation for the broken barrel. Now, TALMUD the shiber. Now, the reason this whole discussion is happening over here is because he broke the barrel. Where ultimately, again, where Reuven will be potter from allowed to kill him. Ha natal lo. But you see from here that had he taken the barrel, he would not be liable, seemingly supporting the position of Rav. So Gemara says, no. Huad din afilu natal nami. It's not true. Even if he took it, technically he'd be chayiv. The reason the Mishnah framed it as a case of breaking the chavis is to teach us the chiyesh lo damim avagav the shiber nami chayiv. That Allah l'maisa, in a case where I'm not allowed to kill the thief, even though he broke the barrel, right? In other words, I'm not allowed to kill the thief, even though he broke the barrel, he's still going to be chayiv. So Gemara says, Pshita, that's obvious. Masaku, he's a damager. Even if he did it without kavanah, he's still going to be chayiv. Gemara says, who cares kavanah, not kavanah? Adam muad li olam. Right? The person is always responsible for damages that they cause, whether they have intention for it or not. So Tanina, the Gemara says, Adam muad li olam, bein b'shogig, bein b'mezid, bein ba'onis, bein b'ratzon. Person is always muad. To which the Gemara says, you're right, kasha, you're right. I don't know what to do with this. So, Mazel Rabbi Bibarabaye, Hagon if case b'Shabbos chayiv. Well, it's we've seen this case many times. Reuven steals my money bag on Shabbos. So the money on Shabbos. What's the halacha? So chayiv shunis chayiv b'gnei v'kol shevel a day iser Shabbos. I will say now. Normally again. Now what's the halacha? So Reuven steals my purse on Shabbos. Then what does he do? Now obviously he picks it up and then he leaves my house. There's two things that are happening over here. What are the two things? Number one, theft. Number two, Chilul Shabbos, he's transferring. Now remember, for Chilul Shabbos, you're Chayiv Misa. But the halacha over here is he's Chayiv for both things. Why? Because there's no simultaneity. Why is there no simultaneity? When does the theft occur? When he picks it up. When does the Chilul Shabbos occur? Only when he takes it out of my domain. So because there's no simultaneity, there's no Kilim B'drabi Minei, and therefore halacha l'maisa is Chayiv for both. The Gemara says, Hayya Megarer v'yotzei pater. But if he dragged the money bag out, right? If he dragged it out, so that, remember, you're only chayiv for Geneva when you lift the object or move it into a different domain. In this case, there will be simultaneity because he's dragging it. Therefore, at the moment that it crosses my threshold into Rosh Hashanah, both theft and Chilul Shabbos occur together. Shari Isser Gneva ve'Isser Skila ba'in ka'echad ve'ilchasa. And Abba says, so the Gemara says over here, what do you see from here? You see from here that Allah Chalamaysa, again, right there is the Chiyuv. Ve'ilchasa dishadinhu binara. And ultimately, again, Rashi says over here, ve'ilchasa, 5 lines up on the bottom, hadik tani pater kagon dishadinhu binara delesnu. The case ultimately, again, where we said that it's pater, would be a case ultimately, again, where the object was thrown into the river and therefore no longer exists. So what the Gemara is suggesting, remember, all of this is in Rav, right? So again, what the Gemara is suggesting is like this. Rav says that if a thief is chayiv misa and steals an object and gets away with the object, he has no obligation to return it. No obligation to return it. Now, Rava and everyone else is incredulous about that. That doesn't make any sense. And now, what's Rav's logic? Rav's logic is killing b'drabimine. Since as a thief, you're liable to death, therefore you are exempt from any other monetary liability, even if that object is mamish sitting in your hand. Rava and everyone else says, what are you talking about? I understand that the object is destroyed, the object is lost, the object is broken. There is an obligation for financial restitution. But if the thief is literally holding the object in his hand, of course he has to give it back. So that's the ongoing machlokes. Rava, ignevu le dechiri machtarta. So this is this. Rava. Now remember, Rava was one who argued on Rav, and Rava had goats stolen from him. Right? So repetitionally, someone tunneled into his deer, to his pen, and stole the goats. What happened? Adjun, he lived, and the thief had a change of heart, and the thief wanted to give it back. V'lo kablinu, Rava would not accept it back. Why? Amar, hoil v'nafik mipumin derav. Since Rav said his piece, Rav said his piece. Now let's remember it again. Now Rava argued on Rav, but Rava said, since Rav said that Allah Chalamaysa, when a thief steals something, he's not obligated to go ahead and return it. This was Rav's statement, and Rava says, even though I disagree with it, I accepted Allah Chalamaysa. Incredible story. So much to say about that, but for a different time. What I just want to point out is halacha l'maisa, though, just to be clear, we don't paskin we paskin like Rav, but only when the object is no longer in existence. So if a thief goes ahead and tunnels in, steals an object and gets away, so halacha l'maisa, again, he's going to be liable, right? He's going to be liable, but now, technically speaking, obviously you can't kill him after the fact, right? But l'maisa, again, if the object is no longer in existence, the thief is not obligated to make financial restitution. But if Reuven came in, stole my object, gets out, and then we find him when we find the object. If the object is still in existence, halacha l'maisa, we don't pass like Rav, we pass like Rava, and halacha l'maisa, the object itself has to be returned. Incredible. All right, let's go. Tan Rabbanan, ein lo damim mizarcha shemesh alav. So the pasuk says that the homeowner, right, is not chayiv for killing the thief if the sun, literally again, if the sun is shining. The Gemara says, I don't understand. The chi hashemesh alav bilvad zarcha, is the sun only shining on one person? What's the meaning of the pasuk? Ella, in bar lecha davar kishemesh she'ein lo shalom imcha hargehu. Rather, what it means is like this. If you know with absolute certainty that the thief is there, if it's as clear as the sun that the thief is there to kill you, kill him first. Ve'im lav, but if you're not absolutely certain, al targehu, don't kill him. Now I will say, now watch this, that's Brisa 1. Brisa 2, Tanya idach, im zarcha shemesh alav, damim, v'chi hashemesh alav bilvad zarcha, ella, im bar lecha kishemesh sheyish lo shalom imach, rather the second Brisa says like this, if it is as clear as the sun that the guy loves you and is not going to kill you, then don't kill him. Ve'im lav, but if it's not as clear as the sun, hargehu, kill him. Rabbi said, the Gemara says, Kasha stama stama. Now, you see what just happened over here? These are two dramatically different brises. Rabbi saying, Brisa number 1, essentially says like this. The only way you're allowed to kill someone is if what? Is if it is as clear as the sun that they are going to kill you. But if it is not as clear as the sun they're going to kill you, you can't kill them. According to the second Brisa, only if it is clear as the sun that the guy is not going to kill you, then you can't kill him. But if there's any safek, you can kill him first. Now, those are two pretty dramatically different brises. So what do you do with this? Lo kasha, Amit Beis. I'll say, look at this, Amit Beis. We are great. Amit Beis, 10 minutes to go. Amit Beis. Kan ba'av ben, kam beben ala'av. Wow. Rabbi say, listen to this. Everything depends on who the thief is. Right? One is talking about a father who's stealing from his son. Rabbi say, when a father steals from his son, it's absolutely certain a father will never kill his son. So if the son, now again, father might steal from his son apparently, right? But the father is never going to kill his son. So if the son discovers, he wakes up and his father's in his house, tunneling in, stealing stuff, a son is not allowed to kill his father. Because a son knows that a father will never take the life of his son. May steal from his son. What you see from here is parents sometimes do mistreat their children. Right? After all, you see over here that you have a case of it. You can't say that a father won't steal from his son, because apparently that does happen. So sometimes parents knowingly or unknowingly will mistreat their children. But one thing you can count on is Rahmanas of a father towards his child. A father will never kill his child. On the other hand, if a son breaks into his father's house, not so pashut. Not so pashut. Sometimes a son could kill a father. So I'll say, such a heavy Gemara. Right? So therefore, again, if the thief is a father, the son knows with absolute certainty his father is not going to kill him, and therefore, again, the son has no license to kill the father. On the other hand, if halacha l'maisa it's the son breaking into the father's home, we don't know. We don't necessarily know what the son may be prepared to do. Incredible. Amrav called the Asiyali Ma'alai Machtara Katlina Leila Bar Meirav Chanina Bar Shila. This is interesting. So Rav said, anyone who breaks into my house, I'm going to kill, except if it's Rav Chanina Bar Shila. Well, say such an interesting compliment, right? In other words, anyone else who breaks into my house, I'm going to take him down. Except if the thief is Rav Chanina Bar Shila. Gemara says, my time, what's the reason? Maybe because Rav Chanina Bar Shila is a tzaddik. Well, obviously he wouldn't be such a tzaddik. Ha ka'asei b'machtara. Someone who breaks into someone else's house. Ella mishum dekimli bigavei demerachim alai kimerachim aval ben. Both say this is such a touching Gemara. Rav says, because I know that Rav Chanina Bar Shila loves me like a father. Wow, I want to say something so beautiful about this. I know that Rav Chanina Bar Shila loves me like a father, so I know that even if he were to break into my home, I know that halacha l'maisa, he would not go ahead and take my life. So what you also see from here is, apparently there could be other relationships outside of an actual father-child relationship where someone could love you like a father. So it does exist. There's nothing like a father's love, right? So the father's love is unique, a parent's love is unique, but apparently in life there are other people who could love me with that unconditional, non-judgmental love, like a father loves his son. Incredible, I will say, incredible. So much to say about this, but I'm going to lose my job if I don't go ahead. So Tanrabanan. So damim lo, bein b'chol bein b'shabes. So we'll say, the Gemara says all of these halachas. So essentially we'll say what we have over here is as follows. The metric we adopt is like this. If someone breaks into your homes repetitiously, the understanding is that a person is going to stand up and defend their property, which means that anyone who's breaking into my home secretly is ready to kill me. Because they're ready to kill me, therefore what? I have the halachic obligation to kill them first. But when are you allowed to take the life of a thief? Only when you are not 100% sure that they come in peace. If I'm 100% sure that they come in peace, then I can't kill them. The only real example of that is like a father, or someone who loves you like a father. Otherwise, if you're not sure, defend your life defend your life at all costs. Now the Gemara says these halachas apply both by Shabbos and by weekday. So the Gemara says, "Bishlam ein lo damim bein b'chol bein b'Shabbos itzrich." So ultimately, again, I understand I'm allowed to take the life of the thief, whether it's Shabbos or weekday. That makes sense. Why do I need that qualification? Itzrich sadait chamina midi dahav erugei bezdin. Because I will say this is kind of like execution by bezdin. Just like bezdin is warranted to execute someone, so too if the thief is coming in and I don't know 100% that he comes in peace, I'm allowed to kill him. So this is like, I become like the Bezdin. So I might have thought, the B'Shabbos lo katlinon, so I might have thought that Bezdin doesn't execute on Shabbos. Maybe I can't kill this thief on Shabbos. Kamash lo say first white line, the katlinon, that I can. Ella domim lo bein b'chol bein b'Shabbos. So both say, but again, the case where I'm not allowed to kill the thief, and there is liability for killing the thief. So now that halacha applies on Shabbos and during the week. So the Gemara says, I don't understand what's the chiddush. Hashta b'chol lo katlino le b'Shabbos mibai. If I can't kill him during the week, I certainly can't kill him on Shabbos. What it means is like this. We'll say, let's say somebody breaks into my home on Shabbos and then the wall collapses on him. Sif halach l'maaseh, it's clear that he was going to kill me. I can't remove the rubble from him. The halach is because he's liable to a death penalty. But if I'm not sure if he came to kill me, or I'm sure that he didn't come to kill me, halach l'maaseh again, I could remove the rubble in order to save his life even on Shabbos. Tan Rabbanon. V'huka v'chol adam. Umeis b'chol misa. Shata yachol ami. So we'll say, this is incredible. Reuven breaks into my home. Now what happens? Shimon, my neighbor, sees Reuven breaking into my home. So what's the halacha? Shimon, my neighbor, has the right to kill Reuven. It's not just me, the homeowner, who has the right to kill Reuven. Even someone else has the right to kill Reuven. Not only that, but he's allowed to kill Ruvain. Anyone's allowed to kill Ruvain. I kill Ruvain, he killed Ruvain with any way we need to. So the Gemara says, so that I understand why the Torah needs to teach me that anyone is allowed to execute Ruvain. After all, why? Because one would have thought, I might have thought the license to kill the thief is only for who? Only for who? Only for the balabas. Only for me, the balabas. But other people don't have a right. Kamash Malon they do. Which, by the way, makes sense. Why? Kamash Malon the rodefu v'afilu achanami. Remember, once Reuven is breaking into my home, he has the status of what? Status of what? Of a rodef. Once he's a rodef, then anyone has the right to go ahead and execute him. Even my neighbor. The elames. But I will say again, why do I need the special limud that teaches me you can kill him any way you need to kill him? So I can learn this from Rotzech, from a murderer. What's the halakha by a murderer? This is someone in general. So, right, Reuven killed Shimon. Now Reuven is going to be executed by Beis Din. There's a particular type of misa, right? The say whatever the type of misa, whatever depending on the crime. Let's say Reuven is chayiv to saif, decapitation. But let's say for whatever the reason, Beis Din doesn't have a sword. So what do they do? What do they do? You execute him wherever you can execute him. So the Gemara says, "Sanya most yamos hamakya rotzeachu einel b'misamurlo." I don't know that you can execute someone with the prescribed death penalty. How do I know that if I can't execute Ruvain with the prescribed penalty, that I could go ahead and execute him however we could execute him? Talmud Omar, most you must mikol makom. Pasuk says, execute him however you need to execute him. To which the Gemara says, no. So therefore, I will say. Same thing over here. By the thief, kill him however you need to kill him. Shmuel says, no. Shiny hasam, damar mokra, mos yumas. It's different because by execution the Torah uses the lashon of mos yumas. And what is mos yumas? That double lashon teaches me that even if you can't give the proper death penalty, Beis Din has the right to execute him however you can execute him. V'nigmar minei. So why don't you learn that from this? Learn that from Rotseach. That halacha l'maisa, when someone is liable to a death penalty, just kill them however you can kill them. Because they both say there's also Gol Adam. Gol Adam, remember again, right? Reuven kills Shimon accidentally. The relatives of Shimon have the right to seek revenge from Reuven. And by Gol Adam also, they have the ability to kill Reuven however they want to do it. Say, Rabbi, what do you have over here? You have two psukim that teach you the same concept. Rotzeach and Gol Adam. What do they teach you? That whenever someone is liable to a death penalty, if you can't give them the prescribed death penalty, then what? You can kill them wherever you want. So we'll say, what is this called? This is called Shnei Ksuv and Aboin Ke'echad. I have two mitzvahs or two halachos that teach you the same thing. So the Gemara says, now what's the halacha? V'chol Shnei Ksuv and Aboin Ke'echad ein malamdin. I will say in general, whenever you have two psukim that teach you the same concept, you cannot create a principle from them. Tan Rabbanon, machteres eini ela machteres gago chatzera v'kafifu minayin. So I will say again, but halacha l'maisa. So therefore, I will say, so again, we learn two very important halachas from here. Number one, not only is the homeowner permitted to kill the thief, but who else is? Anyone else. Why? Because the thief has the status of a rodef. That's halacha number one. Halacha number two, how do you kill the thief? How do you kill him? However you need to. Two important halachas. Both another part of halacha. Tanabanon. Machteres. Even the machteres. They both say, I only know if the thief is tunneling in. The Gemara says, Gago, Chatzero, Karfifo minai. How do I know that if he's coming through my roof, my chatzar, my karfif, how do I know? In other words, even if he's not tunneling, he's coming through a window, that I could also kill him. Talmud Lomar, Yimatze Hagonav Mikal Makom. The pasuk says, Yimatze, however you find the thief, wherever the thief is found, you're allowed to execute him. Im Kain, Ma Tamlo Machteres. If that's the case, then why does the pasuk say Machteres? Mipnei Sharov Ganovim Mitzu Machteres. Because the majority of thieves tunnel. Torah just spoke about the normal way that it's done. Tanya idach machteres, only machteres. Gago chatzer v'kafifu minayin. I only know that if he tunnels in. I don't know if he comes in through the window, through the chatzer, through the roof. Talmud Lomar, yimatze haganov mikol makom. Im kain matamor machteres. So ultimately, again, if that's the case, then why does it say machteres? Because machteroso zohi hasra also. Because remember, if you're tunneling, just know that's your hasra. If you're tunneling, the Torah itself has already said that halacha l'maisa, you are warned. Now, we have to stop over here for today, but l'maisa, this is now going to end, this is going to bleed into the next sugya, which is, does the thief require hasra? Is there hasra necessary in this case? The Gemara suggests tunneling in, by definition, is your hasra. No further hasra. We'll stop over here for today. Shkoyach. Okay. Great run. All right, Chav on Zoom. Have a great day. Shkach to all of you. And Jerry, Mazel Tov on your granddaughter's wedding. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Everyone on Zoom. Jerry Nolaski marrying off his granddaughter tonight. London? Okay. Next. Go ahead, Baruch Hashem. Good. Advanced Mazel Tov. Shkayach, everyone. How are you?
I knew you had it in you.
I'm sorry? Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. It's only extenuating circumstances.
In war, you shoot a guy who you know is coming to kill you.